I'm not here to bash on Mushoku Tensei because honestly, it has a really good story, but I will argue it also has one very serious problem. Now I'm not sure if you will agree with me, but at the very least I can guarantee that it will make for an interesting conversation. As I'm sure you know, Jobless Reincarnation is the new isekai anime that everyone is raving about. It has beautiful animation, entertaining characters, a slow methodical story that has successfully built up an interesting fantasy world that I can't wait to explore. That was, until I watched episode 5. More specifically, this scene right here, where Rudy reads a letter from his father, giving him permission to sleep with a girl. So there is 3 potential issues within this one scene. First off, they are both children, like below the age of 10. But hey, it's anime, so let's let that slide. Secondly, Rudy and Eris are cousins, but this is a medieval setting, so I'll let that slide. But lastly and most importantly, we haven't even met Eris yet. Let that sink in. The very first thing we are told about a 9-year-old girl is that she should be seen as a sexual object. Then just moments later, Eris's own father paints her in the exact same light. Now you're probably thinking,
it's fan service, just like any other anime.
Well, I agree and disagree, but we'll come back to that in a moment. And of course, I didn't make this video based off of a single scene, so let's take a gander at the rest of the female characters. First, we meet Rudy's mom, and the very first mention of her is a direct comment about touching her features. Then of course later on, we can hear Zenith and Paul having a wrestling match. Next up we meet Lilia, as Rudy is checking her out, which makes her feel uncomfortable. Plus, she also winds up in a wrestling match with Paul a few episodes later. We then meet best girl Roxy, which Rudy points out that she looks so young that she probably hasn't even grown hair yet. Then there's Rudy's friend Sylphette. She does get a normal introduction, but as you know, we get the bath scene, which is followed up by Rudy saying that he will groom her into his perfect woman. Ghislaine is then introduced, and they waste no time informing us that she has also wrestled with Paul. Of course we have Eris, which we partially covered, but we just need to add in the scene where she's sleeping in the barn. Then lastly, we have the dancing instructor, Miss Edna. Now at the time of recording this, Miss Edna is the only female character that has been named and not sexualized, but I'm sure that has nothing to do with her being an older woman.
Coincidence? I think not!
Now I think we can all agree at this point that Mushoku Tensei leans a bit towards the disrespectful side when it comes to representing females, and believe it or not, it only gets worse from here. Allow me to introduce you to Paul Greyrat. He is Rudy's father, and he starts out as an upstanding citizen who enjoys a little wrestling with his wife. However, one day he gets caught cheating on his wife, which has basically no negative consequences whatsoever. It even tries to slightly justify it by saying that she seduced him. Shortly after this, we casually find out that Paul forced himself on Lilia when they were younger, and this comment gets completely brushed off like it's no big deal. Then for good measure, the story had to also point out that Paul has wrestled with Ghislaine in the past. And that's all just Paul. We also have the 2 scenes where Roxy gets groped by her new student, and then that scene with Eris's grandfather and maid. So if you look at the whole picture, you will find a story where all the female characters are depicted as sexual objects, and also where the male characters are frequently shown assaulting and disrespecting women with essentially no consequences for their actions. At this point, it's not even debatable. Jobless Reincarnation just has misogynistic tendencies. However, it is debatable whether or not this is a problem. I mean, I've heard many different justifications for Mushoku Tensei, such as,
it's simply fan service,
or it's meant to be a redemption arc, or even,
it's just anime, bro.
So let's discuss these justifications. You see, fan service takes many forms, such as questionable camera angles, the accidental grab, characters trying to peep, or even straight up harem ecchi stuff. What really matters is how the characters react to the fan service. If all members are consenting, then it can be happy. If it's an accident, then it should be funny. And if one character attacks another, then it should be shown in a negative light as to not encourage the disgusting behavior. The problem with Jobless is that it frequently depicts men disrespecting and attacking women with a happy-go-lucky feel and no negative consequences. Paul cheats on his wife and boom, second wife acquired. Roxy is openly assaulted and they just turn it into comedy. Rudy feels up a sleeping girl and shows no remorse afterwards. These types of scenes are a dime a dozen in this anime, and they're just uncomfortable to watch. Now I'm sure some of you are thinking,
Haha, this guy could never handle Goblin Slayer or Redo of a Healer.
but here's the thing. Goblin Slayer and Redo of a Healer have significantly more graphic scenes, but they are shown to be disgusting, not glorifying. Also, I forgot to mention the fact that Rudy is mentally a 34-year-old man, and that's just a whole nother conversation. Next, we have the argument that this fan service is okay, because right now we're in Rudy's redemption arc. The issue with this argument is that Rudy isn't the only character hurting women. Paul is just as bad as Rudy. Then there's also Eris's dad and grandpa, plus Roxy's student. Honestly, if Rudy was the sole origin of the misogyny, then I would probably be on Team Redemption Arc and I also wouldn't be making this video. But the reality of the situation is that Jobless would still have the same issues, even if Rudy wasn't a part of it. Now we have the final argument that Mushoku Tensei is just a made-up anime and as such isn't hurting anyone. And the bulk of my argument here can be found in the term desensitization, which means the more you experience something, the less of a reaction you get from it. Basically, the more you see a guy assault a girl, the more you will become numb to the behavior. Now I'm not saying that Jobless is out here brainwashing people and creating criminals, but the reality is that any media you consume will begin to creep into your everyday life to some degree. It's the reason why you might catch yourself saying "Daddy" after watching Darling in the Franxx. Also, here's a real comment I received from a female viewer regarding Jobless Reincarnation. Now I agree that if you don't like something, you just shouldn't watch it. But at the same time, the anime community is currently praising this show like no other, which can't feel good to our female weebs. So onto the big question, is it okay to watch Jobless Reincarnation? Well, obviously that decision's up to you. If you want to just overlook the misogyny and enjoy the anime for being an isekai, then you just need to be wary and make sure that the anime doesn't bleed into your life IRL. Personally, I'm done watching Jobless, as it went too far for me to tolerate. And I also want to be very clear in this video that I don't think this anime should be cancelled necessarily or anything like that, as I want authors and directors to have the freedom to make any type of story they want. I'm just kinda disappointed that Jobless Reincarnation is the second most popular new anime this season. Like, what does that say about the overall anime community?